Namaskar, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. I welcome you all to the Gita Satsang today. So let us begin with our prayer. Let us do Prarthana. By the Guru's grace and by the will of Shri Krishna, we have all assembled here for this online Gita Satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. So let us chant the prayers now. Vasudevasutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Pranatah Kleshanashaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha. So we will now move ahead to the discussion of the shloka. We will recite the shloka first. So last time we had seen the 11th shloka of chapter 1. Now we will go for the 12th shloka. Tasya Sanjayanan Harsham Kuru Vriddha Pitamaha Simhanadam Vinadyochaihi Shankham Dadmau Pratapavan. In the 12th shloka, it is said, then the grand old man of the Kuru dynasty, the glorious patriarch Bheeshma, roared like a lion and blew his conch shell very loudly, giving joy to Duryodhana. So, we will now go to the explanation. Ramanujadaya Patram Jnana Vairagya Bhushanam Srimad Venkatanathaaryam Vande Vedanta Deshikam Yo Nityamachyutapadambuja Yukma Rukma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmadguror Bhagavatosya Dayaika Sindho Ramanujasya Charanau Sharanam Prapatye. With the blessings of the Acharyas, let us try to understand what are the points in this shloka. So here, in the previous shloka, as we had seen, the discussion was about how Duryodhana described their own army, the Kaurava army, then he described the Pandava army, and then he explains to Dronacharya his opinion about which army is stronger, which army is sufficient or insufficient, and so on. So we have seen all those aspects. So all this discussion which was going on was between Duryodhana and Dronacharya. So all this while Bhishmacharya, who is the Senapati of the Kaurava army, he has been watching all this from a distance, and he has been listening also, because Duryodhana has been speaking quite loudly so that even Bhishmacharya should hear what he is talking. And by listening to this, he can sense. Now Bhishmacharya is the Pitamaha. He knows exactly what his grandson is feeling in his heart, isn't it? We know how people who are very elderly, very experienced, even if we talk to them and we say something in words and our emotion is something different, they can always catch that our words and emotion are not matching actually. So similarly, Bhishmacharya is able to sense that this, whatever Duryodhana is speaking, although he is seeming to say that our army is very strong and we are going to win and like that, but actually deep in his heart there is fear. So what Bhishma wants to do is, he wants to give some courage to Duryodhana that don't worry, we are definitely going to fight very valiantly. And that is why what he does is, he blows his conch. So as we see in the shloka, the word, what they mean is, he's blowing his conch. How did he blow the conch? Loudly, like a lion. And who was this person, Bhishma, who blew that horn? he was a glorious person. He was a very, he's called as Pratapavan. So he's someone who's very courageous, very valiant, and he's Pitamaha. So he blew his conch very loudly to give joy to Duryodhana, to give Duryodhana the courage that yes, now Bhishma is fighting for us. We are all going to fight very well and we are going to win. So whenever there is a war, generally the Kshatriyas, the warriors who are there, they will blow their conch shells to indicate certain things. So the normal indications of blowing the conch are that yes, now the war is about to start. Many times we also hear the warriors, exclaiming or giving out slogans, or they may, bang, hit their thighs, or they may do some sound like like that. They may make some sounds and all this. So what is that? That is like mentally they are gearing up to fight. Now, this blowing of the conch by Bhishma also indicates that we are prepared to fight to the finish. Come what may, we are going to fight. So with that kind of enthusiasm, we are fighting. As we already said, that what was his intention? He wanted to evoke courage in Duryodhana and make him feel stronger. But actually, some of the acharyas comment that the Shankha is a symbol of Lord Vishnu. It is one of the abharana or the ayudha or whatever way you look at it. It is one of the things which is characteristic of Lord Vishnu. So we know that in one hand he has Shankha, in the other he has Chakra, right? So now that Shankha symbolizes Vishnu, Lord Narayana. So it is said that by blowing that Shankha, actually Bhishma is trying to say that on the other side, the owner of this Shankha, Krishna, is there. And when Krishna is on that side, then that is the side of Dharma. Now, how can Duryodhana even have a hope of winning the war? So that is the deeper significance. But Bhishma is not trying to indicate this directly to Duryodhana, because his intention is to make Duryodhana feel courageous that yes, we will fight in a glorious way. Now, this whole episode of Bhishma being on the side of Kauravas, right? There is a lot of depth to it, and we can try and understand many things from that. To be able to understand that, we should go back and revise the whole idea of how Bhishma got that name. We know that Bhishma was initially called as Devavrata. So Shantanu Maharaja, who was a great king in that Kuru dynasty, he got married to Ganga. And Ganga married him on the condition that whatever she does, he is not going to question her. So soon after their marriage, when they had a child, Ganga took that child and threw it into the water. Again, second time it happened. Again, third time it happened. And every time, Shantanu Raja was quiet. But finally, the eighth time, he couldn't bear it anymore. He went and he stopped Ganga. And he said, what is this nonsense you're doing? Every child that is born to us, you're throwing it into the river. I will not let you do this. What, anger do you have? Which mother even does such things to her own children? How can you kill your own child? So then Ganga had laid down the condition that if she is questioned by him, then she is going to go away totally. So she tells him very sadly that actually this child I was not going to kill. I would have spared him. He was not due to die. But you have done this, you broke the condition that we had. And so you have now, I have no other alternative. I have to leave you and go. And she takes that child also with her and goes. That child she brings up, he has the best of gurus. Brihaspati, the guru of the Devas, he teaches him all the jnana. Parshurama, who is the greatest Kshatriya in the world, teaches him the skill of warfare. And armed with all this knowledge, and somebody who is very courageous and valiant and very well versed in all the knowledge, such a person, Ganga brings back that Devavrata and leaves him with Shantanu and says, now this is your son. He is your son. You keep him with you and he will help you with all the things. So we know later the story of how as time proceeds, Shantanu goes and he sees that Satyavati, who is a fisherwoman, and he wants to marry her. But they are having one condition, that they don't want Shantanu's son, others' children, to become the king. So then Shantanu gives up the idea. He says, okay, I can't agree to this. But he is very sad because he has fallen in love with that Satyavati. So then afterwards, when Bhishma understands that this is when Devavrata understands that this is the cause of the anguish of my father, he himself goes to Satyavati and her father, and he tells them that you please get married to my father. So they say this was a condition that we laid down, but your father was not willing. So Devavrata says, why should my father hesitate? I have absolutely no problem. When you marry Shantanu and whatever children are born to you, definitely those children only will be the kings. I can promise you that, he says. So when he says that, they say, okay, fine, you are saying this, but what is the guarantee that your children will agree to that? So at that point of time, this Devavrata takes a very Bhishma Pratignya, a very terrible kind of an oath, a very intense oath, which is very difficult to live up to. So he says that I take this oath that I will be a brahmachari for life. I will not get married at all, because if I get married only, there is a question of me having children and those children taking a claim to the throne. So your worry is that you don't want anybody else to become the king, but you want your son to become the king. So fine, I will not marry. I will not have children at all. So that pratignya, when he takes, all the devatas in the sky, they appear and they shower flowers on him. And that is the time when he is given the name as Bhishma. So that pratignya is such a, ghor pratignya. It's such an intense kind of a vow that he has taken, which is very difficult for anybody to match up to. So that vow, Bhishma has got Bhishma's name, and he has lived all his life. And at that time, he has also taken the vow that whatever happens, I am going to forever be supporting the one who is sitting on this Kuru throne. Whoever is the Raja of the Kuru clan, I will do everything I can in my power to protect this person, to safeguard this person, to make sure that they are able to rule efficiently. So all the activities that Bhishma does are geared towards that only. So that is the reason why, even at this point of time when the war is there, now Bhishma is a very great bhakta of Lord Krishna. He has a lot of bhakti in his heart, and yet he sticks to this Kaurava side. So we can understand what is it that made somebody as knowledgeable, as jnani, as bhakta, as Bhishma. We will expect that he should have known what is dharma, he should have known what is the right and what is wrong. And yet, knowing that Duryodhana is on the wrong side, he supported him, right? So that just goes to show that he gave a lot of importance to the vow that he had taken personally. Now, no doubt that is a good quality, that when we take a vow, when we give our word, then we must stick to whatever we have told. We must, if we promise something, we must stick by that. If we have taken an oath, we must stick by that. That is true. As long as it is only worldly objects or worldly activities, we must perfectly stick to our word. But if at any point of time, the question is of whether I'm going to stick by God or I'm going to stick by my personal vow, then at that time, sticking to God is more important than any vow that I may have taken. So if I have taken an oath and I have decided to, I have said I will do one particular thing, then whatever that is at the level of moral or ethics. But it is secondary to whatever is God's will or God's dharma. So that we can try to understand from this whole example, from this whole episode, of Bhishma supporting the Kauravas. So he gave more preference to his personal vow rather than to being on the side of dharma. Other examples of this are also there. Like in the Ramayana, it is told that Dasharatha, he was the father of Lord Rama himself. And yet, Dasharatha only went to Swarga. He did not get moksha. Why is that? at the end of his Rama Rajya, when Rama went back to Vaikunta, he took everybody in Ayodhya with him to Vaikunta. Of course, Hanuman didn't agree to go. He said, I have no work in Vaikunta. I will stay here in Bhuloka, and wherever your glories are sung, I will enjoy that glory being sung. So Hanuman didn't go. But everybody else who was, part of Rama's connection, all the people in Ayodhya, all the animals there, everything in Ayodhya is said to have got moksha. And yet, Dasharatha being Rama's father did not get moksha. He only went to Swarga. Swarga is one of the higher lokas. And once you finish your score of whatever your, account of punya that you have, the merits that you have, from Swarga, you have to come back to Bhuloka. Moksha is the place where, Vaikunta is the place where there is no more coming back. So Dasharatha went only to Swarga and not to Moksha. Why? Because again, for Dasharatha also, keeping up his personal word was given importance to sticking by Rama. Dasharatha stuck by the promise he gave to Kaikeyi. And Rama also honored that. But the fact remains that Dasharatha chose his personal word over the presence of God. So then again, the level is like that he only went to Swarga and not to Moksha. Then there is another example of Vibhishana. We have discussed before also about the greatness of Vibhishana, right? When he gave so much of advice to Ravana, and Ravana never listened to his advice, and instead he only, through words of scorn, and he scolded Vibhishana. He was not ready at all to listen to whatever Vibhishana was telling. Ravana only had bad words for Vibhishana. And Vibhishana at that point of time had to make a choice. Am I going to go to Rama, or am I going to stick by my brother? So sticking by brother, as we discussed in a previous satsang, it is Samanya Dharma. But what is the Vishesha Dharma there? Sticking to the Lord. That is Vishesha Dharma. So Vibhishana chose Vishesha Dharma over Samanya Dharma. The other two examples of Bheeshma and Dasharatha, they stuck to Samanya Dharma instead of hanging on to Vishesha Dharma. So that is what makes a difference about whether you are accepted by the Lord or not. So Vibhishana, there is a story which is told in one of the other versions of the Ramayana, not the Valmiki Ramayana, but I think in the Adbhuta Ramayana or Adhyatma Ramayana it appears that Vibhishana had written Rama, Rama, Rama everywhere on the walls of his house, right? So somebody went and complained to Ravana that Vibhishana has written your enemy's name all over his house. How are you tolerating and keeping quiet? So Ravana went there to question Vibhishana and said, what nonsense is this? Rama is my enemy and you're writing his name everywhere. At that point of time, to cover up, Vibhishana didn't want to do anything to, he didn't want that he should be prevented from writing that Rama's name. He wanted to stick to that writing of Rama's name. And yet he had to justify that. So you know what he told Ravana? He said, actually, no, in this land, you and Mandodari, you are both very great, isn't it? So I want to be saying your names all the time, but because I am not able to say Ravana Mandodari all the time, it is too long. So I've taken Ra out of your name and I've taken Ma out of Mandodari's name. And by combining it, I have written Rama. So actually, this is your own glorification only. So we can say Vibhishana told a lie. But what was that lie for? It was so that he can stick by the side of Rama. So in this example also we can see. And this Vibhishana, now you can say Vibhishana told lie to Ravana, right? Vibhishana did droha for his own brother. And yet this same Vibhishana was accepted unconditionally by Rama. So what is it that God is looking for? What is the Lord looking for? He's looking to see our nishtha. Are we having nishtha towards the Lord himself? Or are we having nishtha to whatever is Samanya Dharma? So we must remember this when it comes to such situations. Another thing we can learn from the example of Bheeshma is that now he was forced to be on the wrong side. He decided that because of his personal vow, he will stick on that side of the Kauravas. Fine. Although he was there, yet he never gave up his bhakti. So even if in our life there are situations sometimes where it's like, we have no alternative. We have to be on a side where we don't want to be, but for some whatever reasons we are there. Even if we are there, we must not forget our actual identity as a bhakta. So never give up that devotion to the Lord. Never give up bhakti to the Lord. So great a bhakta was Bhishma that later Krishna himself advises Yudhishthira that go to Bhishma and learn from him all that he knows. Because once Bhishma goes away and passes away from this world, there will be nobody who is such a storehouse of knowledge. So they all go there. And that conversation between Yudhishthira and Bhishma is the very famous Vishnu Sahasranama, in which Bhishma glorifies the Lord. And Krishna is just sitting quietly and listening to all this. And Bhishma is glorifying the Lord and saying he is Vishvam, Vishnur, Vashatkara. We know all these names of the 1,000 names of Vishnu, isn't it? So every name has a particular guna. So telling all those gunas, telling all those names, Bhishma is glorifying the Lord. And that day, the day when he recited this, and the day when this Vishnu Sahasranama was born, till today, it is well known under the name of Bhishma Ekadashi. So we must take this aspect also from the life from the qualities of Bhishma, that wherever possible, we must try and be on the side of the right thing. We must try to be on God's side as compared to sticking to our personal vow. But if there is no alternative and we have to be on some other side, yet the bhakti in our heart should not go away. The love of God that we have, we should continue to nurture it, and we must do whatever we can to go further and further towards Him alone. So that is what we can learn from today's individual that we are looking at. So the shloka talks about how Bhishma blew the conch very loudly like a lion to give joy to his grandson. But the meaning of that blowing of the conch was actually to say that Krishna, the owner of the conch, is on the other side. So there is no hope of Duryodhana winning. And yet, because he is his grandson, he wants to build enthusiasm in him. So he blew the conch. In the further shlokas, we will see about what else happened on the battlefield. So for today, we have tried to understand the story of Bhishma and what we can learn from his life and the events in his life and how he responded to those events in his life. So thank you everybody for joining in, for listening. If anyone has any questions or you have a comment or suggestion or anything to ask, you are most welcome to unmute and ask. Yeah, is there anything or anybody wants to add or say about whatever we talked today?
Ansuya ji,
Yeah.
so in this case also, Bhishma also goes to Swargaloka. He does not get.
Yeah. Bhishma had the boon that he will have Ichha Mrityu. He can die at the time of his choice. But he did not get moksha either.
Okay.
Getting
This was
moksha,
very...
getting moksha is a process where you do either bhakti or the other path of prapatti or surrender. So by either of these two paths, we can get moksha. Moksha is liberation from the cycle of birth and death. So what happens is when we have accumulated a lot of punya, we go to Swarga. When we have accumulated a lot of papa, we go to Naraka. And once that stock of papa or punya is over, we come back from that place again to this bhumi because we have not finished all our accounts. It's like whatever actions we do, some account is generated. for certain things, we have got some punya. So for some time, we will spend in Swarga again, but the remaining things which you have to experience and get over with, to settle those accounts, you will come back to this Bhuloka. And then if you've done Papa, you will go to Naraka, then again you will come back. So you will remain stuck up like this throughout in this vicious cycle. Because as we come back here and we keep doing our actions, we are generating more and more accounts. So the only way to get out of this cycle is by constantly chanting God's name, by constantly having his memory, so that whatever actions we do, they don't get attached to us, but they are offered to the Lord. So when we do with that kind of a spirit, it will not attach to us. So by constant bhakti only, we will get moksha. The Lord has to accept us, and then we will get moksha.
So all the Kauravas and all, they also went to Swargaloka.
They
And no one,
would have, no, we can't say they went to Swarga. We don't know their accounts. Some of their, see, whatever good they had, if they had done some good things and they had some punya in their account, they would have gone to Swarga. But if they had Papa in their account, they would have also gone to Naraka.
so Ravana and all also, Ravana would have gone to Narka? I don't know. Ravana was accepted by Lord later on, no? At the end or something like that.
Yeah, I don't really know about that, whether Ravana went to moksha or whatever. But if you remember the backstory of Ravana, actually they were the Dwarapalakas who were there in Vaikuntham. In Vaikunta, you remember Jaya Vijaya. They were cursed by the Sanat Kumaras to, be sent away from that place. And then the Lord gave them option of having some multiple births as good people, or of having 3 janmas as bad people. So they couldn't bear separation from the Lord for so many janmas. So they said, we don't mind being very evil people, but we want to be born in the on Bhumi as those 3 sets of evil people. So that Jaya Vijaya, both of them, they are the ones who came first in the as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So Hiranyaksha was killed by Lord in the Varaha Avatara. Hiranyakashipu was killed by Lord in the Narasimha Avatara. Then they came again as Ravana and Kumbhakarna. So again, Rama did samhara of them. The Lord in the form of Rama, in the avatar of Rama, did that. And then in the Krishna avatar, again, these Jaya Vijaya came as Shishupala and Dantavaktra. So there again, they were destroyed by Lord Krishna. So they were actually, from this story, they were the Jaya Vijaya. So after, at the end of these 3 janmas, they went back to Vaikunta. So they got moksha in that sense. But we can't actually put them into the category of got moksha, didn't get moksha, because they were destined to go back there only.
Okay, okay.
That way.
Yeah, it's there is so much to take in.
Yeah. Correct. It's like whenever we start talking about one concept, then there are so many other concepts that come into the picture. So we have to take it slowly, little by little, one by one. God will bless us to be able to do that.
Thank you, Ansayati.
And also when we come back to this Bhuloka, not exactly as a human being, there are so many
correct.
species.
Yeah,
Yes,
very
and
right, Shobha. Correct. Good point that Shobha ji has raised up. Actually, if you have enough, you have enough stock of punya, then only you will get human janma. Isn't it? That's what you're trying to remind us, Allah, Shobha?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
if you have done the very ghor papas and this thing, and like you may not only in Naraka, but when you come back to this Bhuloka, you will be born like an animal, or you will be born like a plant, or you will be one inanimate object which can't even, do any
In
form of.
Bhagavatam, it is said that there are so many, some 18,000 lakh species.
Correct.
We can be born among
Yeah.
those categories.
Yes.
Based on our karmas in this life, present life.
Yeah, that is why it is told with so much emphasis that now, when we have been so lucky, we don't know what punya we have done in the past births. We are so lucky that we have got this Manusha Janma, and having
At
got
least we can able to say the Lord's name.
Name, correct, exactly. Getting Manusha Janma is first of all very difficult. Then in that,
Yes.
getting a little bhakti, getting the opportunity to be able to say God's name, to hear about him, to have interest in learning about him, that is even more rare. So we don't know now at
Yes.
the end of this Janma what is going to be our status. We don't know what all we have done so far. We don't know where our next account is going to take us to. So now when we have the chance, we must do all that we can, put aside all the other, inclinations.
In
put
last
aside-
session, you said we should use our five senses for glorifying the names of the Lord.
Correct, correct. So whenever we have the opportunity, we have to glorify God. That's what we must be focusing on. Is there anything else anyone wants to add? So let us offer to the gratitude and lotus feet of Shri Krishna and Guru for inspiring us to start and join the satsang. And let us pray for blessings to always be on us, for their grace to always be on us. Namaskar. Thank you so much for joining in, and we will be
Thank you, Anshu.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ansia.
Thank you.